I'm here. It's Goose, and this is On With the Show. And I know it's been a little bit trying to get between episodes, but apparently when I last saw you, I was going to be talking about the late, great Val Kilmer. Unfortunately, I realized that I have so much research that needs to be done that I'm going to put that off a little bit later in the week. But I do have some other things I want to talk about because as I was going through uh, my as I was going through things, I was noticing on Disney Plus. Now that we're back on Disney Plus, that a Goofy movie is 30 years old this year, and so we're going to talk about a Goofy movie plus the documentary about a Goofy movie called Not Just a Goof. But before we get started, let me show you today's coffee mug. It is from the Walt Disney Family Museum out in San Francisco, out at the Presidio. We were there, I think, a couple of years ago. We put a video out for that over on our sister channel, Travel by Nature. So if you want to go check out the video we saw then, it was really, really cool. Saw a lot of different stuff about Walt Disney and his life, including some really, really cool artifacts. But again, also before we get started, if you do me a favor, reach down there, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications. Bang, bang, bang goes the bell. Hit that bell for notifications. Like the video and share it out to your friends and neighbors. And at the end of this, if you'd like to leave a comment, please do so because I'd really appreciate it. I want to always want to get your opinions. And again, let's get started with the fact that a Goofy movie turns 30 this year. And I'm going to come right out and say this because I'll probably say later on that this is Disney Animation's forgotten film. And the reason I say that is because um, as I was going through the different research of a Goofy movie, I realized that, I, there were some things about that didn't sit right. So I went to see, what are the 50 animated movies from Disney. I mean, you've seen that little video, right? They put out a few years back when they were promoting Tangled, as Tangled is the 50th. That's what they like to say, the 50th animated film from Walt Disney Animated Studios, which is actually wrong because what happens is that they skip over a Goofy movie and totally disregard it. I've seen this not just one but a couple of videos on YouTube that just seems to kind of like just skip over a Goofy movie. Now, a Goofy movie unfortunately had the unenviable task, if that's even a word, uh, of being between The Lion King and Pocahontas. Now, which is interestingly enough, there's a story in there also between Lion King and Pocahontas because Walt Disney Studios at that time they had a they were riding the wave at that point in time. They had just had Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, The Nightmare Before Christmas, and so they were riding this wave. And the next big movie that they were excited to be producing was Pocahontas. As a matter of fact, they sent, as the story goes, they sent all of their A animators to go work on Pocahontas, while all of their B level animators they sent to go work on The Lion King. That's right. Because the description of The Lion King back then in Walt Disney Animated Studios was it's basically Bambi in the jungle. That's what they called it, Bambi in the jungle. And yet, The Lion King ended up becoming a massive hit. It is considered by many to be Walt Disney Animation's greatest film of all time. I could argue that it's Beauty and the Beast, but I can see why The Lion King is so highly regarded as being, the best animated film of all time from Walt Disney Studios. To a year later, Pocahontas basically flopped at the box office. And in between those two films was a Goofy movie. And in the documentary Not Just a Goof that you can see on Disney Plus, they go over the story about how the movie came about. And the interesting part is that it goes through some of the things because back at that time, Jeffrey Katzenberg was the head of Disney Animation, and he had again he was running around getting all these different films done, and the idea of a Goofy movie was let's see if we can give Goofy some heart. Let's give him something emotional to work with, and so by having his son Max, which is from the television show Goof Troop, they basically decided they wanted to do a movie about Goofy and Max, and it worked out as it became a road trip comedy. Now, if you've not seen road trip comedies, they're very common. The Vacation is a road trip comedy. Rain Man is a road trip comedy. It's not basically what happens is a group of people or two people go on a road trip and mayhem happens. All kinds of crazy stuff happens, which is basically what a Goofy movie is. They're going to go on a camping trip, and as they're going across the United States, all this crazy stuff happens. That's a road trip comedy. And I think Jeffrey Katzenberg was really worried about, I don't want just a whole bunch of gags. I want, there's got to be a story here. And they were able to kind of craft a story, where Max, you know, he gets in trouble at school, and the principal calls and tells Goofy that, hey, your son, he's gonna be a juvenile delinquent. And you may have to do something before he ends up in the electric chair. Kind of extreme, but those are the exact lines that are spoken. Of course, Goofy freaks out and he thinks, hey, what do I do to save my son? And what do they? What do you do? What does he decide to do? Let's go on a road trip. Let's go fishing. To Lake Destiny, and I think that's what Lake Destiny. And so, and I like the how in Not Just a Goof, they make everybody look like kind of like Goofies, Goose. Even Jeffrey Katzenberg, who apparently according to them is really short, which I didn't know. I knew he was short, but I didn't realize that he was as short as they said he was. And a lot of times, what they say is that Jeffrey Katzenberg was kind of a pain in the butt. He was a pain in the ass to work with because he would want these. He said that there are occasions where they'd be in the screening room and they're showing the film, and they look over and Katzenberg is asleep, and then all of a sudden, the next thing they know, they get a bunch of notes, and he's there like he didn't even see the film, he was sleeping. What's going on? Um, it was kind of crazy but you see, that's how I think studios work. I think sometimes it's that there are so many things that they have to go over, and I think maybe Katzenberg had already seen some of the things that he already wanted worked on. Um, but there were just certain things that it was like that he would try to press them to make things. Why are we doing it like this? What's going on here? Um, and one of the things that's brought up is that when Jeffrey Katzenberg comes into the initial storyboard reading, he's looking around at the whole storyboard and he's already figured out what's going on, what's going to happen, and he was able to like greenlight it because he saw something in the film that many probably other people didn't see it. A lot of people were sitting there saying, "Oh, Goofy movie is like basically they're taking Goof Troop right off the television and they're going to make it into a movie," you know, um, which was so much more than what was going on. What was really going on with a Goofy movie is what you have is, in one side you have a coming of age movie with Max, who's getting older and he's got his first crush, and he's with Roxanne, and he doesn't want to blow this, and so he's hoping to go to this party to be with Roxanne, only to find out that his dad has planned this fishing trip out of the blue, and he can't go. And so he has to make up something that we're gonna go see Powerline. And she's like, "You are." And so he has to make up this whole story. On the other side, you have Goofy, who is like just trying to be a good dad, and he doesn't want stuff to happen to his son. He wants to make sure his son is okay and is good, and he doesn't want his son being in trouble. And there's something about the idea of him ending up, in the electric chair. I think just kind of freaks him out because he probably didn't think that his son was that bad, which he wasn't. It was just the over exaggeration of a principle, which, trust me, there's times where I think a lot of us adults have heard, that's not really my kid. That's not my kid. You're blowing things out of proportion. Um, which, yeah, let's be honest, that's how it works sometimes. Oh, I need that warm coffee in my. The interesting part is that we find out that this was exactly what they needed. They needed this road trip, and all kinds of mayhem does happen. I mean, they run they run into Bigfoot. They they end up getting their car in a river and going down a waterfall, and they go to this, I don't know, Lester's Possum Ranch or something. It was just kind of the crazy. It's kind of the stuff that your parents would do. This is what my dad and I did, and it was so much fun. Hey, let's go do it. And you find out your kids have no interest in what it is you want to do. But there's a lot of heart to this film, and you could see it. And I think it wasn't really received well critically, which is one of the reasons why it probably didn't do as well at the box office. Because a lot of people, when they say Goofy, I mean, when they see Goofy, they think of Goofy as like the early Goofy. And by the way, Goofy is a dog. Let me just get that out of the way. Goofy is a dog. The reason I know he's a dog is because his very first name was Dippy Dog. And the very first short he was ever in, he was called Dippy Dog. So we know he's a dog. And then he was changed to the Goof, and which then related to Goofy. And then he did all those how-to movies, how-to shorts. How to play baseball, how to play football, how to play golf, how to swim, how to, all those crazy, crazy films that he did, um, that made him like probably, Walt Disney's favorite stuntman. That you could put him in all this different stuff, and he would just come out crazy. But that's what a lot of people I think saw Goofy as, is that he was this comical slapstick actor that he basically portrayed for most of his, I don't want to say career because he's a cartoon, but you know what I mean. Is he's and to put him in a film where he's required to be more human, I think kind of threw people off. But that was the gem of the film, is that you see this relationship between a father and a son who really do love each other, but have a hard time communicating things to each other. And and I also know what it's like when your kids are kind of like, "Dad, don't embarrass me." And of course, when the moment my kids say that, what do I do? Yeah. So let's be honest, it's exactly what I do. I don't do it on purpose. I do it because it kind of gets a little rise out of them. But I don't do anything harmful or hurtful to my kids that would make them regret ever being a part of my family. But as I'm watching the film, and I watched a Goofy movie again after I saw Not Just a Goof, and there were a couple of things that kind of stood out to me. And I want you to see if you understand what I'm saying. There is no indication in the film of Max's mom. You know what I'm saying? Where who did Goofy? How do I say this? Who was Goofy's partner to create Max? Because throughout Disney canon, the one person that did have an affection for Goofy was Clarabelle Cow, which, if you would think about it, you know, a dog and a cow. I mean, that would be Max would be a weird hybrid if that were the case. So who is Max's mom? Because there's nothing ever said about it in the film. Goofy doesn't say, "I wish your mom was here." Max doesn't say, "I wish mom was here." Where is mom? So it kind of like leaves a little bit something to kind of like ponder. The only other thing you can think of is that maybe Max is adopted. That's a good theory, but when Max starts laughing like his dad, like Goofy, you're kind of like, okay, there's no way that he could be adopted because he's got he's got that same laugh as his dad, and trust me, my son has pretty much as close of a laugh to mine as it could possibly get. We're both loud, we're both boisterous, and very distinct. When we laugh that we're in the house somewhere, we're somewhere in the building. But so it's just one of those questions where it's like, okay, well, who, as the best term you can say, who did Goofy get with to make Max? Um, but again, this is a father-son film. You know, let's move on from that because we'll be thinking about that but the funny part is that as I have to address this because you think about it, Mickey and Minnie have been together forever. They don't have any kids. They have nephews and nieces. They don't have any kids. Donald and Daisy have been together for a long time. They don't have any kids. They have nephews. Donald has nephews, Huey, Dewey, and Louie. They've been around for the longest time. We know that Daisy has nieces. We saw them in the Three Caballeros television show on Disney Plus. Their names are April, May, and June, which, again, would make things kind of interesting if the nieces and the nephews were to. I'm getting off track here. But Goofy seems to be the only one of the three between Mickey and Donald that has a kid. So I don't understand, exactly how Disney canon works. I don't think this is how this all works on Disney's side. It's just kind of weird. Again, we don't know who Max's mom is, and Goofy is the only one that has a kid. But but let's move on because because again, as I've said, this is Disney's forgotten animated film. For some reason, they have decided not to include it in its history of movies that have been released under the Disney name. And it did get a theatrical release. It wasn't one of these movies that went straight to VHS, like some of the movies that they had going on in the 80s and 90s. They movies that just go straight to VHS and DVD. This one got a theatrical release. So why is it being so forgotten? It's kind of interesting because if you watch, again, Not Just a Goof, you realize that as soon as The Lion King was released and it became a massive hit, Jeffrey Katzenberg went to everybody doing a Goofy movie and say, okay, now you have my full attention. We're going to work on this film and we're going to make it a hit. Unfortunately, before any of that could really happen, Katzenberg was released. He was let go. He's fired. And then, of course, he ends up going over to DreamWorks where he does Shrek as a way to, look at Michael Eisner and kick him in the balls. I mean, just because I think that I think that if Katzenberg had stayed with Disney, I think Goofy movie would have been a big hit. I think I think a Goofy movie would be celebrated as this, one of Goofy's biggest, films and achievements. But again, you always go back to the fact that they always think of Goofy as being the slapstick comedian. If you think about this for just a minute, again, aside from his relationship with Max and Goof Troop and all that other stuff, let's go to another media, which is called Kingdom Hearts. And in Kingdom Hearts, Goofy is the king's head guard. He's the head guard, which means in order to be the head guard, you've got to be a badass. And so here you've got, there are several times in Kingdom Hearts, whichever game you're playing, Goofy not only is he one of the stronger characters in the games, he's also one that speaks a lot more. There's a lot of logic behind what it is that what he does, what he says. Um, and so Goofy is not. I mean, Goofy is not just that slapstick comedian that everybody makes him out to be. Goofy can be whatever you need him to be. Goofy can be that strong guard character to protect the king. He can be that loving dad that takes his son on a road trip to go fishing and ends up on a concert stage with Powerline. He can be that goofy slapstick character that you need to make you laugh. And I think that's what a Goofy movie is really all about. It's having that movie where it's about the relationship between a father and a son, and it's one of the rare films I think in the Disney canon where you can take this character and put him in that situation, and you fall in love with the whole thing. Um, I will be one of those to say that it took a long time for me to realize I should watch a Goofy movie. It's 30 years old. I need to reacquaint myself with this film. This film, it's really good. And again, because it opened between the massively successful Lion King and the massively disappointing Pocahontas, it just for some reason gets lost in the shuffle. And it's kind of crazy because even the films that are considered some of Disney's worst films, like Chicken Little and Home on the Range, still get love from Disney Animation. They're still recognized as a Disney animated film, whereas a Goofy movie, for some reason, is just left out. It's forgotten, and that's a sad thing. And I think that this is something that Disney, for some reason, does to movies that they want to kind of forget about, which I don't understand. I mean, you could find a Goofy movie on Disney Plus, and as I pause here, it is just one of those films I think that deserves more love. It is one of the most underrated Disney films of all time, and I think that despite Katzenberg's interference in trying to get things, I think there was a lot of method to his madness. I mean, considering that when he left, he ended up at DreamWorks, and the Shrek franchise has become one of the biggest they've ever had. Oh, and he very much came out and said this is an anti-Disney movie. Shrek is an anti-Disney movie, and it is. Um, yeah, one of the things I recommend you do is go see Not Just a Goof on Disney Plus. It will really open your eyes. I love how they animated all the different characters and people in it. Um, and it really gives a background about how, because this again, there's so much more to this. I mean, they were originally doing doing the animation in California, then were moved to France, and then were kicked out of our studios in France for a while because for some reason it's like Disney decided, hey, we need to fix up these studios now. We don't have anything important going on over there, do we? No, we're just doing a Goofy movie. So I highly recommend you if you got Disney Plus, go and watch Not Just a Goof, and then rewatch Goofy movie. And I think you'll find that this movie deserves more love than what it's getting. As a matter of fact, when we were in Disney's Hollywood Studios, there was a meet and greet with Goofy and Max, and it was a half an hour long just to get their picture taken with Goofy and Max. These characters are loved by the Disney fan base, and I think they deserve more than just being plopped in between these two films and just kind of hidden. Anyway, as we're coming to the end of end of the show, I want to thank you for watching. I really appreciate your time and let me ramble about this because I think it's important. And if you like the video, give me a big thumbs up. Big thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel. Smash the bell for notifications. Smash, smash, smash goes the bell. Leave me a comment. Let me know what you think, because I really am interested in knowing what your thoughts are on a Goofy movie. And to share this video out to your friends and your neighbors and whoever else you think would be interested in this. Again, I am going to be coming up with my video really soon on Val Kilmer, probably within the next few days. Because like I said, as I was doing my research on Val, I realized that there are like 2 or 3 films I have not seen of his that I must see before I do a proper commentary on his life and his career. But when I do come back next, it won't be about Val. I'm going to be talking about Star Wars and the last 2 TV shows that I have seen on Disney Plus from Star Wars: The Acolyte and The Skeleton Crew, and tell you how these 2 different shows could force Star Wars to go in whichever direction that will make it possible, make it successful. But until then, I am Goose. This is On With The Show. Thank you for watching. I'll see you on the other side.